Hi, I'm Felicity, registered nurse, cosmetic injector, and founder of the Fit Injector Clinic. Welcome to my channel and video podcast streaming on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. Today is episode 2, and I have a fellow cosmetic injector, business owner, and mum joining me. Welcome, Kylie.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So excited to have you. Awesome. So Kylie is the founder of Cosmetic Collective in Orange, and today we're going to be chatting about what to look for in a cosmetic injector, city versus country demographic differences, industry stigma, and generational attitudes towards self-care and beauty. There's some pretty good topics.
Some pretty big topics to cover there.
It's amazing.
Pretty big topics.
But first, Kylie, tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, I've been a nurse since 2006, which we just figured out was 17 years.
Yes.
And I was a theatre nurse for many years here in Sydney at RPA Hospital. I had a lot of different specialties, transplant, trauma, but the one that I spent a long time in was plastics reconstructive.
Amazing.
So I got to know a lot of little junior doctors back in the early 2000s who now are big plastic surgeons to the stars. And I also had the opportunity to go on aid work trips with them. I've been on 7 trips to Nepal. Yeah. 7 doing burns reconstructive surgery. And it was just fascinating type of surgery, really rewarding and fulfilling. But while you're there and you're working hard and having long days, you're eating together and, you know, hanging out together. I remember saying to these guys who were basically registrars in the early 2000s, one day you'll be big surgeons to the stars and your patients will want cosmetic injectables. Yeah. And as surgeons, they were like, well, we just want to operate, but you can come and do that when we start. And so they started moving into private practice in about 2010 onwards. Yeah. And I started doing a bit of cosmetic nursing with them. So it was a very organic sort of trend. Yeah. A very sideways, sort of just an organic sideways step. And I thought it would be a good lifestyle change from being in the operating theatres. Totally. Which it was. But one thing I didn't
different phase.
Totally different. But one thing I didn't expect to enjoy so much was that satisfaction. I suppose when you get into nursing, you want to help. And one thing that was missing in the operating theatres, it was a great team environment, but the patient's asleep.
Yeah.
You're
not getting any feedback, right?
Yeah. If you do your job well, you're never seeing them again. Yeah. So the nice thing was all of a sudden I was getting this really nice, what we would call a therapeutic relationship. And that surprised me how much I actually enjoyed that. So good. So it stayed a side business till about 2017. Yeah. And I juggled the two. And then we moved to Orange in regional New South Wales. Which is not my decision, but it turned out to be.
I did want to know more about that.
My husband bought a pub. He bought a bar.
What?
Yeah, it was a proper midlife crisis kind of thing. But
was it just like, hey, I bought a bar?
It was a little bit like that, yeah. Originally it was, hey, me and my mate are going to buy a vineyard. And I was like, you can't grow anything. So the bar seemed like a safer option.
Okay. Yeah. So that was like kind of his compromise?
Definitely. That was his compromise. Okay. I thought, well, the children are young. They were 2 and 6 months at the time. So I thought, let's give it a go. Let's go out there.
Oh, my God.
And look, it's not exactly the Wild West. It is incredibly cultured, civilised town. There's about 45,000 people and there's a huge amount of industry. So
bigger than what I thought.
Yeah. Department of Primary Industry. There are 3 hospitals, 2 universities. So all of a sudden we got there and I was quite pleasantly surprised. And there's lots of people there who want those Sydney style services. And I mean, you and I, if you walk down the street, you can tell who's having treatment, even if it's very subtle or, you know, I could tell quickly that there was a market for this. Definitely. But in terms of what was available, there were people flying out from Sydney and leaving again, lots of fly outs or people traveling to Sydney for their treatments.
Which is
not ideal.
No.
And at the time, I could see also what was there. It was always in the back of somewhere, the back of a dermatology, the back of a hair salon. Yeah. Again,
someone's
not ideal.
Converted garage.
Exactly. So, and here in Sydney, the standalone medical cosmetic clinic was very much a thing. We all recognise it as its own industry, its own little medical niche. And I thought there's definitely space here. So, I became a full-time injector in 2018, contracting into other clinics. Yeah. And I opened my own clinic in 2021, which was such a huge learning curve going from just doing your job to, I mean, I don't have to tell you, you know, rent and staff and all those other things.
So many more things.
Steep learning curve. Yeah. But we're there now. And,
you are.
It's great.
And it's amazing.
Here we are.
So good.
It's good.
Something else I wanted to ask you about being in Orange is on your Instagram, I always see you're very much out and about. And like you said, you thought it was going to be the Wild West, but it's actually quite civilized. Now, all I see is you fully dressed up, makeup, dress, heels. You're obviously very connected in the community. That's amazing. And you did tell me prior to this, you're also in the Country Women's Association.
I am. And I thought by joining, I would get some skills by osmosis. I still can't make a scone, but I'm actually in a really young, dynamic branch. And some of the women in there are surgeons. Some of them work, like I said, for Department of Primary Industry. Some of them are primary producers themselves. So there's such an amazing, dynamic bunch to be about. But it's really opened my eyes to geographical challenges, like what, not just my industry, but services, hard to get services. Yeah. It's been really, really interesting.
Yeah. So I'm sure you can share like a lot of things that you all go through. Like you said, different industries, but you probably all go through very similar things.
As professionals, as mothers, access to services. It's really opened my eyes. And then it's like anything, I suppose, the more you give, the more you get back. But in a community, people really, and as a business owner, it serves you well to be out there. It's networking, it's giving back to your local economy, and that comes back to you. Totally. So we don't, as an example, we don't do any paid advertising. We don't need to. Word of mouth plays a huge role. But in terms of networking, the best thing we found were the sponsors and the judges for Fashions on the Field.
Yes,
for the local races.
I love that.
I wear a uniform every day. Know very little about race fashion. Well, I do now. But to go around at the races and talk to people and hand out your cards, and that's been the best.
Amazing.
And so much fun as well. Super fun.
So good. And I love seeing you and your team out and about doing that. It's amazing.
You really have to mind your P's and Q's though. Like you've got to go out and remember that you are representing your business, and it is a small town. So for better or for worse, you do have to, be on your best behaviour.
You sure do.
And so do my children when we go to the shops.
No screaming, no talking.
No tantrums, please.
No tantrums.
The day you go in your track pants, that will be the day you run into every patient that you've ever treated.
Yeah, totally.
Definitely.
Oh, that's a whole new challenge.
Yeah.
We'll add that into city versus country.
It is.
Because I can get away with rocking out in my track pants.
No.
Because I'm probably not going to run into anyone.
No. No, you will definitely run into someone. And we'll probably get into it, but it's challenging because your patients often don't want to be recognised.
To see you. Totally.
It's just I
look forward to that one. So let's start with what to look for in an injector.
Yeah.
And I think let's kick this off with training and professional development, because I don't think a lot of people realise all the things that go on in the background per year for us to be able to provide the best treatments, the best services, inject in the best possible way. So all the things that we do that actually take us out of our clinics to be better injectors.
That's right.
So tell me a little bit about the things that you've done this year and the things you've got coming up for your training and professional development.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And what a lot of people don't realise, there was a report the other night on the 7:30 on the ABC. So you can, to do cosmetic injectables in Australia, you have to be a doctor, a registered nurse or a dentist. Each of those bodies report to different professional groups, and then there's APRA that regulate overall. But there's a very big gap there. That's where your sort of formal tick in the box ends. Yeah. So there are people that will go and do literally a day course and then go out and inject. And go. And then there are people like ourselves who take their training and professional development very seriously. Yeah. What you get there is a huge scope in skill, and a scope in prices as well. And sometimes people will say, your prices are quite high. And I'll say, yes, but you are paying, one of our favourite lines is you're paying for the skill, not the mill.
I love that one.
I love that because it's really expensive to keep up your CPD. You're taking time out of the clinic and paying for courses. I did a course earlier in the year, which was a cadaver course. So amazing. People who've donated their body to science. Amazing anatomy experience. That was a $3,000 course and a day out of my clinic.
A one-day course.
One-day course and a whole day out of my clinic. Exactly. So you add, and travel costs for me being regional. So you add a lot of costs in there, but the learning that I got, and knowing that I can safely operate and I know exactly where every vessel is, and that's invaluable in its own way. So I make sure I attend at least 3 conferences a year. Yeah.
You're here for one.
Yeah, I'm here for one this weekend, which will be fantastic. And I also make sure, and we're lucky with the rise in technology. So pre-COVID, any event that was on, product launch, information evening, was always held in a nice hotel in the city.
Yeah.
But when it's an 8-hour round drive for me, I could miss a lot of that.
Exactly.
Whereas now there's so much web opportunities.
Yeah.
There really is no excuse not to be up with your training and development. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I totally agree. And, you know, similar to you, I, you know, do like a lot of training as well. Like I've already had our suppliers in multiple times this year, doing a lot of face-to-face. Like you said, I do a lot of webinars. Often when my little one goes to sleep, I'll jump online and I'm, you know, involved in a webinar. I did one last week.
Yep.
The cadaver course, you know, you were telling me how amazing it is. I'm actually booked in to do mine in a couple of months' time. I'm really looking forward to the learning opportunity there. Conferences, we've met up at lots of conferences.
And they're great for networking because you get the formal learning, but you also get to meet with other injectors and share experiences,
networking,
knowledge, stories. Yeah.
It's so good.
And develop community.
We've both done like business mentoring conferences this year as well, which was fantastic. Really focusing on, you know, how we can do better business and, you know, provide more like better customer service.
That's right.
Well.
Yeah, we talk about the patient experience a lot, and as clinical trained nurses, that's not something you're readily taught.
Yeah.
But so what they're experiencing when they come in the door and how they're treated and how you handle a lot of the legalities that we're also not taught, how to safely handle patient information, and data and record keeping and legal things that a lot of people don't realize, because this is a medical procedure. There are things that we need to learn and know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So continuing on what to look for in an injector, a point that you brought up was, do injectors, and I guess online these days, are they promoting themselves on their own merit, or are they out there putting others down? And this is something like I see a lot when I'm scrolling on Instagram. Yeah. And I think it says a lot about an injector where they're just focused on themselves and they're not really worried about what anyone else is doing. Yes. And I really don't like that whole, like, I call it kind of like injector bashing, even in front of a patient. You know, if a patient sits there and they're like, oh, you know, I had a bad experience somewhere, you know, I feel like a lot of injectors be like, oh my God, yeah, like that was terrible. Yes. But I try and just be like, look, you know, have you followed up with them, and try and be kind of just quite diplomatic about it and not be sort of mean to that injector, and often say, look, people do things differently, especially if it hasn't been like a terrible adverse event, you know, and just sort of then, you know, educating them and guiding them and things like that, and kind of like, let's put that to bed and let's move past that, just instead of sitting there and being like, oh my God, yeah, that was such a bad injector. And, you know,
I certainly wouldn't want someone doing that to me.
Exactly. I think about how would I want to be treated, and especially, you know, some of our patients, they think an adverse event is getting some spocking or something like that.
A bruise.
And
guess what? It's a needle.
Yeah. And I would be mortified if someone was saying that I was a bad injector because I gave someone a bruise or something like that. So you've got to think about, how you'd like to be spoken.
Yeah. And I think it also speaks to the skill, like a hot tip for patients if they're going out to social media, which is where they find a lot of their information these days. Yeah. If you're looking at an injector's page and all they're doing is talking down other injectors or just commentating on other people's work and not showing their own work, that's a really big red flag. I want to see what they can do. So in terms of what they can do and their befores and afters, honest lighting, you know, really not filtering it. That's so important. And also I want to see a range of, like, don't show me someone with beautiful lips that you've just made bigger. Wow, you coloured between the lines.
Over and over and over.
Yeah,
I want to see an older lip.
Yeah,
you know,
realistic.
Lots of upper lip lines, things like, and different angles as well.
Exactly. I think that's something that people should really look for, honesty in what they're putting out there and integrity in what they're putting out there.
Definitely.
It's super important.
Yeah, totally agree. Does an injector tailor your treatment, listen to your goals and your concerns? Or are you just going, and I get this a lot when, say, a new patient has come and they say they've been to another clinic and you know, they went in there for one thing and suddenly they're like, oh gosh, you've got to do like the whole face, and they get to the counter and they're like, oh, sorry, I've spent how much? And it's this completely like overwhelming experience. Yeah. You know, I think it's really important for patients to feel like they've been listened to, like they've been educated, and that they're also in control of deciding, you know, yes, they might want to need all of these treatments, but they're in control about when they have those. Exactly. Instead of just feeling like sold to. Yes. Yeah. It's
definitely not a sales pitch. But it is a holistic thing. When we sit down with someone for a first consultation, we have a treatment plan, a physical plan, because we write our notes, we have digital notes, but something for them to take home. So listen to their concerns and often use like passive listening skills. So what I'm hearing is you're feeling that you look cranky or tired.
Yeah, tired.
Create a plan, look at the skincare, look at everything, and then give it to them and say, and it can be quite risky from a business perspective because you're giving them basically, this is what we would do. Yeah. And they could go somewhere else with that.
and potentially get it for cheaper.
But at least I would say 9 or more times out of 10, they're
Yeah.
going to trust you because you're not selling them in one go.
Yeah.
It's not a sales pitch. It's just, this is how we can make you look like a healthy version of you.
Exactly.
And we'll start with something today, the thing that bothers you the most,
Yep.
whatever that is. And I've learned over the years, and that's where listening is so important. I have only made this mistake once, and you would only do it once, when someone comes in, sits in their chair, and you say, "You're here for your frown lines," and they say, "No." And you go, "Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right."
Yeah.
So what is it obvious to me aesthetically might not bother them at all.
No. So
And
you
that's
need to
important.
wait.
You need to wait.
Yeah.
And it's what bothers them when they're looking in the mirror. I'm not looking at them every day.
Exactly.
So that's super important.
Yeah, because it can be completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's often when they can, feel kind of let down, or like I've had patients say to me that they went other places and they left and they cried because they're like, I went in feeling kind of good about myself and I left actually feeling like I'm a really ugly person.
And you have to be really careful with your language for a couple of reasons. Like, we're very passionate about saying we're not there to fix or change. Those things are things we can't do, and nor should they want to do.
No.
And with the new regulations coming in the 1st of July with APRA, the regulating body, we have to be really careful in screening for patients as to why they're having things done, what their motivations are for having things done. So if someone's coming and sitting in my chair and saying, "I've broken up with my boyfriend and I want revenge lips," that is throwing off some massive red flags for me. Like, why do you want this treatment done?
Yeah.
What is your intrinsic motivation? Because body
100%.
dysmorphia is certainly on the rise, and we have to screen for that.
So and someone like that would need like a cooling off period. It'd
massively.
Be like, actually, treatment's not suitable today. They probably just need to chat to you today.
Yeah.
And just chill out before we proceed with some treatment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's something that's where the listening comes in really handy as well.
100%.
You've just got to really sit and just look at the motivations for having things done. Yeah.
Definitely. And it definitely helps then to be getting those regular long-term patients because they feel safe. They feel listened to. They feel like they're on this like journey with you.
Exactly.
And it's not just they're going in and they're getting everything on that one day and then maybe like, having, not feeling good about doing all that in one go.
Exactly right. And that's the moral and ethical way to go about it. But also for me, from a purely business perspective, when you're in a town with a limited demographic, you need them to come back again and again. You want them to trust you and to come back, and you don't want to churn and burn through patients.
You don't want one-hit wonders.
Yeah.
No, you can't.
You would be out of business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess an extension of that is, does your injector know when to say no or suggest an alternative treatment?
I have had patients who've come to me because I've told one of their friends no. And they've instantly gone, "I can trust her.
I need to see this nurse.
I need to see this nurse." Because, and again, it's twofold. There's moral and ethical considerations there.
Yeah.
There's anatomical safety.
Yes.
And again, living where I live, if you went to the pub on a Friday night and you saw a girl with giant lips and you went, "Oh my God, who has done that?"
Kylie's done that.
You're not coming to me. That is my brand on your face.
Exactly.
So that's super important. Yeah. So it covers a lot of factors. But yes, I think it's super important to say no for multiple reasons. Patient safety first, ethical and moral reasons. And also, everyone does have a different aesthetic. I know some injectors who do beautiful, big, bold lips, and they're gorgeous.
Stunning.
And if that's something, and that's something that they're really good at. So like everyone's got their own thing as well. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's really something really powerful for patients to understand is that when injectors saying no to you, they're saying no to like putting food on the table for their family. So when they're saying no,
a sale essentially.
They are putting your safety, your aesthetic outcomes before anything else.
Yeah, I think that's really important for them to understand.
Yeah.
Yes, they could go somewhere and have it done, but hopefully they will trust you enough to stick with you.
Yeah.
And appreciate that.
Totally. Yeah. And then suggesting other things too. Like we've all had the patient who's, sat on the bed and they're wanting another mil of lip filler. And then sometimes just going, you know what, that's not going to look quite right. Can I suggest? And they go, oh yeah, that's always bothered me, but I've never really asked about that, or like the last, 3 injectors didn't really sort of talk about that. So there is that fine line between obviously not, going overboard,
but then also
appreciate
it.
Can we maybe, because it's not going to look that good if we go putting more and more in that one spot.
And once you've engaged that trust, it's such an easier conversation to have. Yeah,
totally.
Often if it's nasolabial or mid-face and you're saying, you've actually lost a lot of volume up here. Can we look at restoring, and then just explain to them the physiology of aging and why they might be looking heavy in a spot because they've lost volume in another spot. And then they go, That makes sense. And no one's ever explained that to
Exactly.
me.
Or I didn't know that was an option.
Yeah.
Totally.
And that's a very important conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So our next topic is city versus country demographic differences.
I don't think we could be more geographically opposed. I mean, yes, it's a very civilized town that I'm in. And, you know, there are more people in Orange born in Sydney than born in Orange. So it's not your classic country town. But you're like right in the heart of Bondi. So I would say our demographics would probably be a little bit different. What is do you have a... Yeah.
Slightly, I'd say. Look, mine is honestly such a range. You know how people talk about, you know, what their sort of like their average or their ideal patient is. My client base ranges from like 18 to 79.
Yeah, right.
In terms of age.
Yeah.
And but I would say in terms of like Bondi Junction for the last 2 months that I've been here, you're looking at, you know, males and females who are between that kind of 25 to 35 age range.
Yeah.
I want to call them like the positive ages. They want to start that bit of age prevention.
Yes.
They're noticing a bit of that kind of little bit of sun damage, maybe some fine lines. That's definitely what I'm seeing in terms of our new patients who are coming through the doors.
Yeah.
You?
Well, mine are mostly 35 plus.
Okay.
Yeah, not as many. The younger ones that come through, and I'm sure we'll get to that, have definitely got different, they're much more educated.
Yes.
But the people that are coming through to me, and in general, so yeah, I have patients right up until their 70s and young patients as well. But I find in the country, there's a lot of stigma around this sort of area.
Yes.
I think a lot of it comes from lack of education and lack of understanding as to what it is. But I would imagine here in Bondi, and I lived in Sydney. Yeah. You had it done or you didn't have it done, whatever.
Doesn't matter.
I don't dye my hair. It's not my thing. My hair's boring. But if I don't judge people who dye their hair. Thank you. I don't judge people if they dye their hair.
Exactly.
It was a very each to their own thing.
Yeah.
Whereas in the country, there does tend to be a lot of stigma around the type of person who has something done. And that comes down to any self-care, not just even the injectables. We have people that come into the beauty therapist for a spa treatment. They're like, oh, I probably shouldn't be like doing this for myself. There's a very women traditionally in the country do not put themselves first ever. And to do so is a sign of weakness. Yeah. Or to be doing something for yourself.
Whereas
I've
probably got the opposite.
Everyone's very
here it's like you know, self-care, doing it for me, love myself, you know, put myself first.
It's a very hard conversation to have with people to say this is okay.
Yeah.
You know, on the plane, you fit your mask before you fit someone else's mask. Fill your cup. It is okay. But that's a very hard thing to break down. Yeah.
Totally. I want to know more about your point on this, about your potential to out a patient.
Yes. So, you know, as I said to you, rest assured, if I go down the street, I will see a patient.
Yes.
I have.
If you're in your trackies with no makeup on.
Definitely. And if my kids are having a tantrum, the chance goes up 1,000%.
Yeah. I've got this great image. Yeah.
Right? But in a town of 45,000, I have a database of 6,000. So that's a pretty good chance you're going to see a few of them. And given that most of them are my age and move in my sort of, I'm going to see them at the school gate. I'm going to see them at sport on the weekends. And just the other day at the school gate, standing with a girlfriend, she was standing with one of her friends and she said, Kylie, have you met X? And X looked petrified. Whites of her eyes, giving me the crazy look. And I said, no, it's nice to meet you. I have treated her for 3 years, every 3 months for 3 years.
No.
And she didn't want anyone to know that she had anything done. And it's so...
And you on the fly just have to read her body language.
Nice to meet you
in that 2 seconds.
The thing that another instance that really stood out to me was we had...
that gives me goosebumps.
You couldn't be on your toes. Mia Friedman, the Mamma Mia podcaster, came to Orange and did a show at the local theatre. There were 500 tickets, 500 women. And it was sort of like a discussion panel. They had the house lights up, so they were asking people all sorts of questions, home birthing versus hospital birthing, all that sort of stuff, audience engagement. She said, how many people here have had cosmetic injectables? Now, I know for a fact a good 200 of them have.
Should have put their hand up.
10 people put their hand up out of 500. Because the house lights were up and everyone's, you know,
and they're probably all like,
who's had, obviously I put my hands
You're like,
up.
I'll put both hands up.
Like, I could feel the eyes of everyone on me going, because it's so the temptation to stand up and say, you in L9, you over there, you, but no, you can't.
Like I saw you yesterday. I've got you in tomorrow.
Yeah, you're there next week. But bizarre. And I had so many messages afterwards, people saying, oh, thank you for not outing me. And
thank you for not outing.
It is a medical procedure. And no, I'm not going to out you because there is a thing such as medical confidentiality, but it does not frustrate me any less.
Yeah.
Why can't you? And also, I feel it stigmatizes the industry further.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help the sisterhood. If you're going down the street saying, Felicity, you look really fresh. And you say, thank you.
Thanks.
I sleep really well and I drink water.
It's my silk pillowcase.
I'm sitting here going, I drink water. But why? So
what?
It's not helpful.
We all drink water.
We all drink water. We all drink water. But I just think that is unhelpful.
Yeah.
It's incredibly unhelpful.
Totally.
So
and especially when you're out there like really trying to educate people on these things and you're almost getting this like pushback. You know, we don't expect them to run around with a sign saying, you know,
I don't
I
expect
get
them to wear my vial earrings, you know, the toxin
Can we get a close-up shot of those earrings, by the way?
They are legitimate empties.
For those of you who are only listening, she has little vials of anti-wrinkle, empty, that she's turned into earrings and she rocks them everywhere.
Joke, that's my emergency stash.
My girls who saw them on you a few weeks ago have not stopped talking about them. And they've Lucy, who's my receptionist, she's very creative and she wants to create them.
Easy.
So next time I'll probably be rocking my
But yeah, it's really challenging.
Yeah,
like no one else in town would be wearing these earrings.
No.
They would not admit to it. I mean, some people do, but they're definitely in the minority.
Yeah.
That's really hard.
Whereas I feel like to the majority of my patients, I could hand those earrings out and they would rock them around Bondi Junction with my logo on them.
Yeah,
They'd be like,
absolutely.
yes, just got injected.
And I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think you're right. A lot of it comes down to education.
And do your patients come with friends? Probably not.
Rarely.
See, mine, like, even if they're just booked in on their own, I don't even know prior, they'll often turn up with 1, 2, 3 friends and they're all like in the room, like, we're here to learn.
No.
And I'm like, okay. I've got like a whole party going on and I'm like, what? And then on the spot, I've consulted 5 friends.
I mean, I would have treated them all individually, but whether they all tell each other they have it done, probably not. And it's I had a lady in today who bought a voucher for her friend. She said she comes here for facials, which is the nice thing about having a holistic clinic.
Yeah.
You have a cover.
Yes.
When I looked up her file, she's had anti-wrinkles, she's had fillers, she's had PRP. I'm like, yep, sure, you can buy her a voucher for her facial.
Wow.
Really
okay, so quite different.
Very different. Yeah, I'd say that's probably our biggest difference. Yeah, city to country. Yeah,
absolutely. And then the last one on the differences between the city and the country is the importance of doing a good job every time. And I think it definitely applies to both of us.
Yeah.
But in particular for you, say the Schoolgate example, is that you are seeing these people all the time. And like you said, if you have just these one-hit wonders with your patients, you're like, where's my next patient coming from in a town of 45,000?
So, and that's super important. So obviously all injectors who put themselves through their training and their education, they want to do the best job every time.
Yes.
Of course. And there's always going to be instances where people are not happy just because aesthetics are different or they were looking for something different.
Yeah. Or just different personalities. Like we're not going to appeal to everyone.
That's right. But really making sure you've done the best consultation, the most thorough consultation, follow-up is hugely important because sometimes you'll ring and say, how's it going? And they'll say, look, it was a bit light. That could be the difference between them coming back and not coming back just by checking in. So that follow-up and checking in and just communication is so key when you are relying on that return patient,
absolutely
demographic.
Yeah. And I think it definitely applies to me as well. Obviously, you know, I'm less likely to, you know, run into people in the street. But I think for me here, I'm in competition with, gosh, if you Google Cosmetic Clinic Bondi Junction,
so that's big.
There's like 20 other clinics that come up on page 1. I'm sitting at the top, by the way. SEO.
So that's important.
But it is important, right?
And
you know, people come in and they go, oh, you know, you've got all these 5-star reviews and, you know, really want to come to you. And so there is this pressure, you know, to be doing 100% the best job every single time. And, you know, while I'm trying to build myself in Bondi Junction as well. And I want people to repeat and I want them to come back and refer their friends and all of those sorts of things.
It's super important. And one thing with these, I know we've talked about it before, these regulation changes coming up, they're tightening things up as of the 1st of July, which any good injector or practitioner would welcome because we're already doing the right thing.
And it helps to set us apart from the people who are doing the wrong thing.
Exactly. But one thing that sometimes gets a little grey or in the past has been a little grey is people putting testimonials on social media or the practitioners themselves saying, I have changed this person's life or tooting their own horn.
Yeah.
It's a medical procedure. you can't put any testimonial on a social media page because you can delete the ones you don't want. So in an industry like ours, Google review is the only review because you can't moderate that. And that's why it's really important to do a good job every time because you have no control over that page.
I know.
There you are, one bad Google review away from being
I know.
ruined.
And I feel like as a business owner, I like lose sleep over that. Like it's always in the back of my head. Like, oh my gosh, I think I'd cry the day I do get a bad Google review. And like you, because we're trying to do the best job every single day.
Exactly. So even if you do have a negative outcome, how you handle it is so important for your business. Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think that ties back to what to look for in Injector, where you mentioned before about the follow-ups and things like that. It's just so important that they're getting that, not just when they have their appointment, but they're getting that follow-on.
And really feeling cared for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Love that. So our next topic is industry stigma.
Oh,
now, I want to hear about this patient that you had in the chair who didn't want to look like someone who'd had anti-wrinkle. Please tell us more about this.
Well, this was soon after the event, the 500 people event. So I was sort of had my, I don't know, hackles up a little bit. I was already getting a bit miffed about it. My girlfriends were like, please get off your soapbox. But it's something that I'm quite passionate about, this stigma around having treatment done. And that same week I had a patient in the chair who said, I just don't want to look like one of those people. And I'm like hello.
Me?
Obviously I have this done. This is my business. So tell me more about those people. And she said, well, the type of person that does things to themselves. And I said, so there's something wrong with treating yourself or self-care?
Yeah.
Well, no, but yes, but I just don't want to look like I do. So why are you here?
But you want your lines
you want it
gone.
Done, but you don't want to look like someone that has it done because the type of person that has it done looks vain
like you.
Or and so I just let her go. Just sort of threw little grenades and let her along, and she was digging herself this deeper and deeper as I'm standing there with a needle going, so what do you want? It was just so funny.
And I
was
feel
laughable.
like majority of your patients would look at your face and go, you look fantastic. You look
40.
No, incredible, right? Those of you watching the video, look at Kylie. My team actually, when they saw you the other day and you left, and they were like, "Oh, how was Kylie?" And they were like, "Oh my God, she looks incredible." But so many of your patients would look at you and say, "You look so natural for someone that does injectables."
I say to them, "Look, I have a lot. I've had everything in this clinic. I have done. Obviously,
she does.
Obviously, I have everything done to my face because this is my business.
Well, you have to try everything.
Exactly.
Right?
But, for my patient, I want them to look natural, and that's really important to me. But to have someone sit there in my chair and say to me, I don't want to look like the type of person that has this done because the type of person that does something like this is vain, or, I'm
it's so confusing,
you want it done.
But you're here. You kind of think that kind of person wouldn't come in. Right? Just don't make an appointment.
Just don't do it.
Very
You're going to do it or
so
don't do it. So I was getting a bit over it.
Did she proceed with treatment?
She did.
Was she happy?
Yes. But doesn't tell anyone she's had anything done. Of course.
Very
just another one to
interesting,
chalk up down the street where I will not, recognize them in the street.
So it's like everyone in Orange, but you don't know everyone
I
in
do,
Orange.
but I don't. Exactly. One of my good patients who does tell people she has things done, she's a psychologist, and she says she's the same. You go down the street. Whereas I think therapy has a very good place for everyone in the world. Like I'm all for mental health.
Therapy.
I'm all for therapy.
I've been in therapy for the past year.
Therapy.
That's probably never going to change.
And my husband and I, we're really open. We've been happily married for a long time, but we will schedule 6 weekly sessions because we do not have time to argue at home. We're like, park that. We'll talk about it.
That
6
is
weeks.
Brilliant.
And we sit down and we get it all out, and then we're great. And I'm very big passionate.
And you told me before we started that you guys have been together for over 20 years.
Exactly. So I think it's really important to sit down and talk to someone about how you're feeling, how you're traveling in life. Right now, this stage of life with small children and aging parents, it's challenging. But a lot of people won't admit to seeing a therapist as well.
Oh my gosh. No, I think we need to normalise that majority of people are either getting or want anti-wrinkle, and majority of people are either in or need therapy for something, right?
I completely agree.
And just the challenges of, these days, it's,
I think it's just so healthy. But she can't acknowledge people in the street either.
She would not be
so
able
we can
to.
wave at each other like mad. And people can say, is Kylie seeing a therapist or is the therapist seeing Kylie? You'll never know.
You'll never know.
Column A, column B.
I love that. So then that shows, different industries, but she has similar stigmas
about the type of person.
About the type of person that would have therapy. But she's probably the most popular psychologist in Orange.
Booked out.
Yeah. There you go. Very interesting. Now, the other one in stigma is that cosmetic injectables are for old people or vain people.
Yeah.
So that really ties into what we've been talking about. And I think I noticed a lot. It's changed a lot in the past few years, but I'd say let's track back maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I'd have people in the chair going, oh, but, getting my friend, like frown lines, like that's for someone who's old, but I do feel like over the last few years, there's a lot more education that anti-wrinkle is best used as a preventative.
That's right.
Before we're old, before we've got the furrows and the deep frown lines and forehead lines. And now we're seeing a lot more younger people wanting, like I spoke about, our positive ages.
Yes.
They're wanting to prevent those things because they go, oh yeah, my mum or my dad has got these deep lines and I don't want to get there.
To the parents. Yeah.
So that's definitely changing. There's still, a lot of stigma around that. But I think it is getting better, and probably thanks to the amount of education that's out there.
I agree. Yeah. And look, some of my patients, my older patients, I've got a laser that does beautiful work on sun damage and pigmentation.
Yes,
a lot of my younger patients, well, we grew up with sunscreen. We know that we need to prevent the sun damage from happening in the first place. So there's definitely the young people are much better positive ages.
They are.
They're much more educated as to what's out there and what's available thanks to the rise in social media.
Definitely.
And with that comes pros and cons because, when I was growing up, I had Dolly magazine and Girlfriend magazine. I got them once a month, and for better or for worse, they were my only external influences.
Me too.
And look, they weren't great sometimes. I distinctly remember heroin chic being a thing and everyone wanting to be thin like Kate Moss. So I'm not saying it was super positive, but it was limited.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's coming from all the angles.
They just pick up their phone and they have it all.
So they'll come in asking for a service that doesn't even exist in Australia, or a product that's not even TGA approved in
things
Australia.
I haven't even heard of, and I've got to do a quick Google sometimes. I'm like, sorry, what?
So, and what do you want? Why do you want it? And what is it? So they can be very educated, but they can also, you've really got to sift through where they're getting their information from.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's a challenging one.
It can be scary.
And I found 4 or 5 years ago with younger patients, sometimes they would come in asking to look like a particular person.
Ooh,
and that was really common even when I was growing up. My mum had a beauty salon inside a hair salon.
Yeah.
It was the 90s. Everyone wanted the Rachel.
Yes.
And to have the conversation with someone, you don't have Rachel hair,
and
that's not going to work for you. But now I'm seeing the face tuning coming in. I want to look like me, but face tuned me.
Oh, yeah. 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 When they show you the selfie with the filter on.
Yeah.
Or
the jaw is slimmed.
Yeah.
The nose is straightened, and you're going,
no. Or they show you their friend, a photo of them, and I said, yeah, but that's got a filter on it. And it does it. And I'm like, it definitely does.
It does.
Yeah,
so
totally.
they can be more educated.
Yeah.
And I think in the younger generation, I'm definitely seeing a rise in men, even in Orange.
Me too.
Probably would still only have 5% of my patient being men, but they are more educated and they're more confident around looking after themselves, especially the younger guys that go to the gym and do all the other stuff. It's nice to see. Whereas my 35 to 55 demographic, no, men would, over their dead bodies, they would not be coming in. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Don't even go there.
Don't go there. Wouldn't even go there. No.
And the last one for this topic really ties into the first point we were talking about, is the stigma around people when it comes to dermal fillers, not wanting to look done or puffy or overfilled. And I think the biggest thing that I talk to patients about when they say that is I say, well, that's because we only notice the bad stuff.
That's right.
I say, just coming to this clinic, you probably passed 50 people who've had fantastic injectables and you just thought they looked great. But you only noticed that one person out of those 50 you passed who unfortunately has had some filler that doesn't look so great.
That's right.
And I think they think they're coming in and they're having 1 mil of filler and they're going to look like someone who's had filler.
Of work.
It takes a lot.
I have to say to them, it takes a lot of work to look
a lot of
bad.
filler placed in the wrong places.
That's right.
Not following what your face should look like. There's a whole host of things to get you to that point.
It's nice to see the industry changing a little bit, and education plays a big key. I say to patients, filler is designed to restore volume that has been lost. A lot of these people where you're noticing the filler, they haven't lost the volume. They're adding volume. And I'm seeing in the industry a lot of celebrities being more honest about dissolving their filler, bringing things back to a natural look. And it's really refreshing.
It's refreshing.
It's nice to see.
Have you noticed a rise in how much dissolving like you're doing in the last couple of years, and say new patients coming in who, you know, you haven't treated before, and they're coming in specifically to have their fillers dissolved?
And this is very new for me. I mean, dissolving is not new, and having the discussion around dissolving is not new, but people coming in seeking it is fantastic. And I applaud it.
Yeah.
Get really excited.
Me too. Me too. I love it.
Especially when you see super big lips or migrate and you're just like, oh, can I? Please let me.
You're like, so this is a dissolving agent and you're going to be friends.
I like to put a bit of, I always keep like a little bit of expired filler for education and just show them, put the dissolving on, and I'm like, look, isn't it great?
Instant. Gone.
Love it.
Yeah.
But I have seen definitely a rise in requests for dissolving.
100%.
And I'm here for it.
Because I never had like dissolving a filler as an actual like service. Like, because years and years ago, no one was asking for that. But these days it's actually like a service that you can book in for with me. And a lot of new patients do book that in. So
I think it's fantastic. And I think
and sometimes we do just need to dissolve and start again.
Yeah. And sometimes that's just a conversation that you have to have. It's a difficult one.
It's
but
hard.
It is, if you've gotten to a point where they're trusting you, it's just so satisfying.
Yeah.
Taking them through
and it's
that
so
journey.
good. And then when they come back and they're like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better.
Yeah.
Totally.
And we talked to actually, so we, briefly at a conference I was at recently, we talked about there's people who are truly dysmorphic and overfilled, but then there are people, because this industry's been quite mainstream for a while, who do their same cheeks, lips, anti-wrinkle regularly for 10 years, and they start to distort and lose. They'll look back at a picture of themselves 10 years ago and go, what happened to me? It's a very slow incremental thing. Yeah. So sometimes.
And they keep doing more and more. And you could almost say they're like victims of our industry, if anything.
Yes. Yeah. So having sort of someone that you've been seeing for years going, let's just reset as if you're new. Why are you here? What's your goal? Yeah. What are we trying to, let's just refresh what we're trying to achieve here, because you were 40 and now you're 50 and what are we doing? And I think they appreciate that.
They do. Absolutely. Yeah. Next topic is generational attitudes towards self-care and beauty. So definitely the rise, which we've briefly touched on, the rise of male patients and the rise of younger patients as well. And I think for a couple of reasons. Again, like we've touched on, the access to information through social media. So males are more educated, you know. I was talking today, like skin is skin. Yeah. Like on one of my devices, we have female and male settings for our photo facial. And one of my reps was in and we were kind of like, but skin is skin. So it shouldn't be too different. But definitely males are starting to go, okay, well, I want to do some treatments and I want to, you know, look after my skin. And I get, you know, you were talking about, you know, older males in orange probably wouldn't do it. But I do get a lot of, you know, the kind of the husbands of, you know, my female patients coming in. And some of them will say, you know, people in the office think I'm cranky, but I'm not a cranky person. Yeah. You know, males have those lower set brows. They can have deep frown lines. And you put some anti-wrinkle in there and then they come back and they're like, so people say I'm approachable now in the office. And is that great? But no one's noticed I've had treatment done. Perfect. They just think I look happier. Perfect. So good. That's
the aim of the game, to look like yourself, but a good version of yourself. And exactly. It shouldn't just be for females.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Totally. Yeah.
And I want to get more of that education. You know, similar to you know, we've got a decent amount of male patients, but it is still a very small percentage compared to our female patients. And I would really love to see that rise as well. Because I really enjoy treating the male patients. Yeah. And I feel like it's a totally different consult. Yeah. And I love seeing them on the review because they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yeah, it's great. I love that too. And even just from an anatomical perspective, like their muscle structure and everything's different. So I get quite excited. I'm like, whoa, let's get in there.
Do it. Big muscle. And I love doing a good like male jawline with the filler and the chins. Yeah. And I really enjoy doing
I really enjoy that sort of stuff too. And another demographic that I'm seeing the rise of, not in orange, but I still travel to Sydney and inject with plastic surgeons here. And one of them is based, he calls it Surrey Hills. Debatable. It's Taylor Square. I'd say it's more King's Crossing than Surrey Hills, but you know, Sydney real estate. But we have a lot of transgender patients there.
Me too.
That is very fun from a creative perspective. They're feeling like they're feminine on the inside with a masculine face. So we're going to slim their jaw, elevate their cheek, and to make them feel like the feminine person they are on the inside, or vice versa, is so satisfying.
I love it.
So fun.
I absolutely love it. I do have an incredible base of transgender patients.
Wow.
And I'm similar to you. I absolutely love being on that journey with them.
Yeah.
And as you said, when they're feeling, they want to feminize their face and helping them do that, it's amazing.
Seeing that transformation.
It's so good.
And you're not changing them or fixing anything.
No.
You're helping them to what they're feeling on the inside to be reflected on the outside. It is such a satisfying thing.
I know. And when you show them in the mirror, and I've had them then say, oh, I really feel like how I do on the inside. Like, oh,
isn't that great?
It's so good. It's really fulfilling. And then obviously the rise of younger patients with social media. They're so much more educated on what they have access to that say, we didn't when we were young. And in particular, our parents didn't when they were younger.
Definitely.
This was only for like celebrities, this industry, But now they're coming in and like you said, they're like, this is what I want. I've researched this and I've done this. And
It's great.
So it can be, obviously very good. And when we're thinking about them, thinking about genetically how they're going to age and what they're going to need to focus on, but it can also be a negative thing. And that's where we need to guide them as to what is, suitable treatments and not suitable treatments.
Mother them.
Yeah. And also their motivations behind getting treatments as well. And often it's just like a simple, we should probably do this instead of this,
Yeah. And hopefully they will respect you and appreciate it. Yeah.
Totally. We've got questions now.
Ooh.
So these have been submitted from our followers on Instagram, which we love. So we have picked, I think I picked 6 questions out of what we got. So first one is, if pricing was regulated and a price increase occurred, let's say tomorrow, which meant an increase to every clinic in Australia and every clinic in Australia charged the same price for, let's say, 2 areas of anti-wrinkle tomorrow, would clients still pay for it?
That's a really good question. It's a really good question. And I think one thing that makes the pricing so different at the moment is what we spoke about the industry. You can have people that have done a day course and you have people that have invested so much time and effort into it. So in this utopian world, if pricing was regulated, you would say that training and education will also be regulated.
Exactly.
And I wouldn't be against that.
Yeah.
Like I would
And if you say done X amount of training, you could charge this much.
Yes.
But that was also then communicated to clients and patients so that they knew.
Yes.
Like I guess it's similar to say, some hair salons, they'll have your colour, right, or your haircut, and it's this much for apprentice first year, second year, third year, and then you're very experienced, and then you choose based on what you want. Yeah. So I guess this question could really feed into, say it was like that, whether you want an injector who's done your 2-day course or you want Kylie who's got 17 years experience as a nurse.
And you can choose.
You're going to pay more but they could choose that.
And
that could definitely help with, because price objection I find can be a big one in the industry, because say, what we charge for, let's say 2 areas of anti-wrinkle is different to say what a chain clinic charges for anti-wrinkle. And a lot of people don't understand why that is.
And it can be confronting as a nurse, even though I know I'm a very experienced injector, to have that conversation can be quite confronting, and to back yourself. I'm getting much better at it. Yeah. There are a few chains in Orange, but there's one in particular that makes me laugh. People will come in and say, I can get it cheaper over there. They have a giant sign in their window that says nurses wanted, no experience required, course preferred. And I'm like, here's my master's degree and all my qualifications. So you can choose.
You can choose.
and
so what if that was known, like, widely known when you went to an injector and they went, okay, so I can go there and get it cheaper, but I'm seeing someone with no experience. Yeah. Or I'm going to pay a little, and it's not even a lot more, right? No. A little bit more. It's and I'm going to see Kylie, but she's got literally a master's degree sitting behind her head.
Up to you.
And did you say 6,000 on your database? Yes. Like, you've treated a lot of people. Right? Yeah. Whereas you've got the no experience to,
it's just
may
your
have
face.
treated,
it's just your face. Up to you.
So it would be very interesting. It would be interesting. Or if there was, a guide to, to what, because I guess what what people are paying for, and we've touched on this a few times, is a lot more than what they see. You know, they just see us with the needle, and yes, anti-wrinkle only takes a couple of minutes to actually do the injections, but they don't understand that the product is expensive for us to buy.
$700 for a vial.
For one, like it's expensive. And then obviously our training, our purpose-built clinics, the scripting, everything
Safety,
that goes into
cleanliness.
Yes.
A lot of people will say some places that are cheaper, but they're in the back of another purpose-built facility like a hair salon.
Yeah.
I personally wouldn't want to go and have my face injected in the back of a hair salon. We pay a clinical grade cleaner to come in and sterilize our surfaces.
Exactly. So and you've got your emergency medications. You've got, and like I buy the most expensive needles so it's more comfortable for my patients. Yeah. All these little things that people don't.
Even the type of saline that you constitute with, you can buy a saline that is, what's the word for it?
I was going to say heparinized.
The fancy saline.
The words just escaped me.
I know, it's escaped me too.
Yes.
Wow, she's so experienced. For the record, it's late in the day. But it hurts the patient.
We've been going all day.
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly. And all these little things. And like when it comes to dermal fillers, I use a prescription numbing cream. We can use local anesthetic. We can give you a dental block if you need to.
We have a giant cylinder of Internox gas.
Yes.
Make you very comfortable.
All these things.
Yeah.
So it's much more than just that needle and that moment.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I hope that patients are getting more aware of that.
Yeah.
But that comes with education.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And then down to experience too, the amount of people who, will actually say to me once they become a regular client, they'll go, I know like I can get it cheaper and I have before, but I didn't get this experience before. I didn't get this education. I didn't get this follow-up.
Yeah.
But then having said that, on the total flip side, since moving to this location, I've also had a lot of patients who come through the door and, we consult them and I tell them the price and they go, oh, is that all? I was paying more than double last time.
Yeah. So a bit of price regulation wouldn't be a bad thing, or transparency around prices.
It would not be a bad thing at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Would be good.
So question 2 is, will make me puffy? He'll beep that
out. Short answer, no. Short answer, no. But depending on where you put it in the muscles, it can make you look heavy.
Yeah. And I think this question it's actually come up a few times in clinic where I think people think anti-wrinkle and filler are the same thing.
Yes.
So where they say, you've had anti-wrinkle, or they use the word in your lips.
Or I want in my lips. Like, you don't want that.
No. So again, education. But no, it will not.
It will not.
Question 3, are there minimum requirements for training per year for injectors?
Great question. And look, yes, there are, because we report to the Nursing and Midwifery Board and we have to say in our scope, whatever area we're working in, whether it's emergency department, cosmetic, whatever, that we've done a certain number minimum hours of requirements.
Which is 20
a year, which is nothing.
We would do way over that. With what we listed at the start, we would do,
easy. But the Nursing and Midwifery Board is not going to check up on every single nurse.
No.
So it's quite easy to go, oh,
yeah,
I do that.
Exactly.
The quality, the variety and the quantity of that training is vast.
Yes, exactly. And then, actually in our industry, no, there isn't a minimum requirement to say you must have done this much anti-wrinkle, this much filler per year. But I think that's where, what to look for in an injector. Are they doing regular training? Are they going to conferences? Are they doing all those things? And obviously we, take that upon ourselves to do as much as we possibly can.
Yes.
Every single year.
Yep, absolutely.
Question 4, will paying more get me a better result?
Well, look, I think in the long term it will, because if you're paying more, you're paying for someone who's very experienced, who's going to do what they think will be the absolute best outcome for you. And on the flip side, will not do what they think is not going to work well for you. If you're paying more, you're paying for someone who's not afraid to say no, to create a holistic treatment plan, to talk about other things like skin, nutrition and things like that, and who are experienced in those things and who are experienced in the holistic picture. So I do think paying more does get you a better result.
Yeah, definitely. In the long run.
In the long run.
Question 5, how to look up an injector's qualification prior to going to a clinic?
Great question. Great question. So don't look to socials because they can be regulated and they can write whatever they want to write within reason, and it's getting tightened, which I think is great. Google. Yeah. You can't, the injector can't control Google, so all their reviews will be up there for better or for worse.
Yeah.
Look at their qualifications. And one thing I think that's really interesting and important to look for, if someone's claiming to be an experienced injector, and I think new injectors, great. There's, but be honest that you're a new injector.
Yeah.
It really annoys me when I see, I've been a nurse for 20 years, but you've been injecting for 2 weeks. Be honest about that.
Yeah.
Look for how long they've been a nurse and how long they've been injecting. That can be different things.
Totally. And I think a lot of people don't know that they can go on to the regulatory body, which is AHPRA, and they can actually type in our names and actually see that we are registered.
You can see if we have any limitations put against us.
Any claims that have been made and things like that. So that's a really good thing to do. And I recently had surgery, and I did that for the surgeon and the anaesthetist. You've got to do your due diligence before you go under a general and pay these people. So you can absolutely do that before you go to a cosmetic clinic as well.
And I like it. People come in sometimes a little bit bashful. They're like, I looked you up, or I don't you think I'm stalking? No, this is a medical procedure, and I'm putting a needle in your face. I welcome that. Also, really proud of my experience, and look me up. Go for it.
Go for it.
That sort of stuff. I think it shows due diligence by the patient is nice. Better than someone jumping in your chair and saying, I don't know who you are. I don't know what this is or how it works, but I want it done. That is concerning.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And last question is, are there areas you don't inject? And if so, this isn't our last question, sorry, second last. Are there areas you don't inject? And if so, for what reason?
Great question.
You go first.
Well, a couple of things. I think with my geographic location plays a big part.
Yeah.
So if I was injecting here in the middle of Sydney and I got an occlusion, I would have a wealth of things available to me.
Yes,
now, I am still very well supported in Orange. I'm part of a great community of nurses and prescribing doctors. I work with AMET, who are the emergency medical response group for cosmetic injectors. And I'm linked in with a lot of industry professionals. But in terms of what's on the ground and what's available, so say, for example, I was injecting near the nose and I got a vascular occlusion. There have been 12 documented cases of blindness.
Yeah.
It needs to be reversed quickly by a professional, ideally someone who's got oculoplastic experience.
Yeah.
Now, there are no oculoplastics in Orange. There is no where to go to have that, or someone who could do a retrovulvar injection. So for that reason, I just wouldn't do it.
Good.
When I was originally injecting in Sydney, I was opposite the Sydney Eye Hospital. Great. So I felt a bit more comfortable knowing that risk management strategy was around me. But in Orange, in short, I don't do noses.
Yeah.
I don't do temples.
Yep.
They're probably the two areas that I really steer clear of.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
So I choose from a professional standpoint, same as you, not to do noses and also temples as well because of the risks. And even though I am in an area where I have access to so many of the support services that you mentioned, I just feel clinically that I don't want to put my patients at a higher risk of those complications.
Yes.
Anywhere that I can reduce those, I will be, in terms of how I'm injecting and also where I'm injecting as well.
Definitely. And I think as the technology changes and things change in the industry, I will probably find myself doing even less and less. Yeah. I used to do submental injections for dissolving the fat.
Me too.
But now there are devices that can do that without breaking the surface of the skin and without,
the
opening that infection risk and downtime. So
exactly.
I see myself, if anything, doing less in the future than more.
Definitely, as we have more access to other things.
Yeah.
And the less trauma we can cause to a patient, the better.
Of course.
Yeah. Totally. Now, I think this is our last question. So, what do you think about this week's ABC 7:30 report on cosmetic injectables? I watched it last night.
I did.
I thought I'd better catch up before you and I have a chat.
No, I thought it was fantastic. I've seen a few, and I've seen a rise in these stories.
Yeah,
and I welcome them.
I
think in our industry it's very important, but with the doctors that I work with, there's a lot of that similar sort of talk, the difference between a cosmetic surgeon and a plastic surgeon.
Yes.
So I think the more we can talk about what you're getting, what you're paying for, what you should be looking for, what you should be asking is super important. And the more we can educate people around that, the better. I thought it was a great episode.
Yeah, totally. Two things on it. I think it's really good to educate our patients, and I like that these things are coming out. I do find, obviously, because dramatic news sells,
Yes.
it generally does sway towards, it's all bad and these things are all bad and don't do these things. And what I'd love to see just a touch more, and which I'm hoping to, on these kind of episodes, is a little bit more about, okay, these are the risks, but this is also what to look for. And I was kind of waiting towards the end of the episode for them to kind of maybe add in, what to look for is do they have their emergency equipment and things like that.
That's right.
So just,
the takeaway was like, it's scary.
Don't do it.
Whereas
sort of thing.
I think what could have been done was the takeaway being, these are the things to look for.
Yeah.
These are things to ask.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. And around post-care and things like that. But it is really good. And I think there has been quite a lot of cosmetic surgeries coming out recently on like 60 Minutes and things like that. And so many patients were like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And that was just here in Sydney. And, absolutely, not realizing the differences in qualifications. And that was very powerful for our consumers to learn those things.
Yeah, I agree. The surgeon that I worked with, his phones were ringing off the hook. People saying, I had no idea the difference between a cosmetic and a plastic. Your GP can call themselves a cosmetic surgeon. It's not a protected title, which is terrifying. So and the more the same. I had no idea the difference with what I'm getting between a chain clinic and, well, not a chain clinic. There are great injectors in a chain clinic. But totally. For example, what I had no idea the difference between what I'm getting between nurse A and nurse B.
Exactly.
So just I think the more we can educate people of what to look for in this cosmetic industry in general, fantastic.
Yeah. And it's only going to help the good ones stand out, and the ones that are doing the right thing stand out as
Bring
well.
on tightening of regulations, bring on the changes.
Totally.
I'm here for it.
Yeah,
it's great.
Me too. That's good. So thank you so much for tuning in to episode 2 of this video podcast series. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. A huge thank you to Kylie from Cosmetic Collective in Orange joining me today. Thank you so much. It's been awesome to chat to you. And I feel like I've learned, we've obviously hung out at a lot of events, but I feel like I've learned so much more about you now, which is amazing. And I hope to spread the word more to injectors and patients, and just get it out there.
Keep up the good work. I love what you're doing with this platform. I think it's going to be a really important tool.
Thank you. And I love what you're doing in Orange. I love following along.
Come and visit sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Bring you woolly jackets.
Yeah, we will.